A major outage this week at Amazon Web Services exposed how deeply so many businesses rely on a small number of tech platforms and partners, and how quickly brand damage can follow. For more, we're joined by Darren Woolley from Trinity P3. Good to see you. I mean, we watched the cards unfold and fall over and collapse this week when it came to AWS. It hit so many businesses around the world.
Aaron, I think the point here is how we take for granted these arrangements that we make with our businesses. You know, we engage these organisations to provide these services such as cloud computing, and we assume that they're going to do a good job. But I think what we've seen is a succession of failures. AWS is very high profile and very new, but it's only in the past few months that we've seen other organisations such as Salesforce leaking customer data from Qantas, and last year CrowdStrike basically took down every Windows computer in the world. You know, you start to worry that what's actually happening here.
Yes, I mean, the CrowdStrike one was particularly great. I received an email during the week from CrowdStrike warning me what to do in the event of some sort of disaster. And I thought the only disaster CrowdStrike's involved in is the one it created. And this is the issue, right? We have these situations now where so many of these big companies are promising stability. That's their whole sales pitch. And yet when they fall over, they say, these things happen.
Yeah, and yeah, we've seen it with, another one is Optus with the upgrade to the software that threw the emergency 000 line out. Look, that's the problem, is that you sign up for these organisations, you take on their terms and conditions, and often find yourself just left at their whim when a disaster happens. Often communication is poor. You get very little feedback, and you know, as we were this week with AWS, many organisations were sitting there tapping their fingers, waiting for their websites or their e-commerce or whatever to come back online. And this has an impact on consumers. You know, how can they trust a business that they're doing business with, doing commerce, when suddenly everything goes down?
These are some of the first businesses, we should say, but not all of the businesses. Some pretty big names there, from Snapchat to McDonald's to Apple TV to Fortnite, which probably 3/4 of the population were doing at once, trying to play that. That's probably where people started to notice it fall over. But Amazon Prime was affected as well. Canva, that was what I noticed. And hilariously, we use Canva to make our thumbnails. So trying to make a post on our website without Canva was hilarious about the actual problem itself. It raises the question, too many companies relying on too few tech partners. We keep hearing about AWS killers out there. Do we need more competition out there to make sure that if there isn't necessarily a huge competitor to AWS, there's at least a backup?
Absolutely. We need competition. We need backups. We need a plan B. And we can see over and over again governments around the world struggling with enforcing that competition. You know, the antitrust laws in the US are taking months, years to actually come to address this. And because many of these organisations are not incorporated in a country like Australia, it means the Australian government has very little that they can do in making them accountable. I think there's got to be bigger consequences if they're going to be dominant in a marketplace like this, a bigger consequence for when they let their customers down, because ultimately there's a flow-on effect for that business.
Yeah, very much so. And something that's worth talking about as well is speaking to a lot of people in the tech industry, as we do here at TICKER every week. There seems to be now a reluctance to trust cloud and more of an excitement to bring things back in-house, right? We've done it here at TICKER when it comes to our playout, because while everyone says, oh, what if there's a power outage? My response is, well, how often does that happen compared to a cloud outage, which seems to happen quite often, or some sort of tech upgrade that takes you offline on a Sunday, or, you know, and the issue with the cloud is you don't know when it's going to come apart. Do you think that we'll start to see, I guess, a change in how people deal with the cloud and start to say, well, we need a backup here to make sure that if it does go out, you talk about Canva and McDonald's. I mean, this could be thousands, millions of dollars when there is an outage. There must be some reliance on something they can control.
Yeah, look, I think the problem is that convenience trumps security. That
Mm.
we are inclined to find businesses will go for the convenient solution until something drastically goes wrong. Yeah, I think what we'll probably see is more having redundancy systems built into organisations so that if something does go wrong, rather than a wholesale move to localised infrastructure, because then there's also the problem of, yeah, okay, if the power goes out, what does that mean? I then have to have generators on site, or solar and batteries to protect me in that situation. It's got to be a balance. But I think what has to happen is there's got to be more accountability for the organisations that are providing these essential services if they do the wrong thing and if something
Mm.
goes down. They're the ones that should have redundancy. Now, AWS, in many ways, parts of the world like Australia and parts of Asia were protected by time zone, because when it went down, they were working on it during the time that it was not core business here. I mean, it did go for many hours, but I think it protected us this time. But what happens when it goes down for days?
Yeah, we once had a European cloud partner of ours here at TICKER that decided to do maintenance at night time for them because that's the least annoying time, which was right as we were live on air in the middle of a day in Australia. So that's always a good fun one to deal with as well. I kind of like making those calls. Now, when Meta Platforms loses accreditation from the Media Ratings Council for brand safety, advertisers, of course, take notice, and the digital ad ecosystem feels a tremor. What is going on with Meta?
Okay, so the Media Ratings Council offers a rating of brand safety to organisations such as Meta, Google, and the like. And what we've seen here is Meta signed up for it only in June this year and got accreditation for brand safety. But then 3 months later have said they don't want to participate anymore. And you have to wonder why. I mean, they'll justify that they're doing a lot of their own work to make their site safe. But there is nothing like third-party independent verification that it is safe. Relying on their community strategy of making notes to make sure that there's no hate speech, terrorism. It wasn't that long ago that we saw footage from the Christchurch shooting, terrorist shooting, go live onto Facebook and take hours before it was brought down. These organisations, if they want ad dollars, they have to be willing to be accountable to it and to be verified by an independent party. I mean, we've seen X platform in many ways as a dumpster fire. My big concern, though, is that even though they've lost accreditation, billions of dollars of advertising will probably continue to flow in. And yet at the same time, with this concern about brand safety, there are a lot of marketers that are putting news media pages on a block list or a deny list because they're scared of having their ads appear, an airline having an ad appear next to a story about a plane crash is their great fear. And yet they don't seem to have the same concern when their ads appear on Facebook or Instagram, amongst all sorts of...
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. Tori Maguire from Nine newspapers spoke about this at the Nine Upfronts actually last week and spoke about the idea of ads and news and how actually it can have the opposite effect of what we worry about, which is it can actually lead to credibility for a lot of these brands as well. We don't want to see plane crashes, obviously next to advertisements for airline tickets. But one of the interesting things about Meta is that and you spoke about the changes to X. When they had a lot of staff, they still weren't able to get that Christchurch video taken down. They banned Donald Trump, leading to an uprising, leading to him coming back to the presidency as well. It seems that you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't when it comes to staffing these things.
Well, again, it's amazing what people can do when there's consequences associated with it. And I think that's one of the issues here, is that the difference between traditional news media is that legally they're still responsible for the content produced, whereas time and time again the courts have upheld that these platforms are not responsible. If you defame someone in news media, both the publisher and the author are held responsible for it. But if you go onto any of these platforms and defame someone, then the only person that will be prosecuted is you. And that means that they don't have any consequence. So why would they make any changes?
All right, Darren Woolley, we are out of time. Always appreciate your insights there from Trinity P3. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.
Thanks very much.